The Power Thread Meaning Framework by Daniela Gulbahor and Michelle. History and origins of the approach. The Power Thread Meaning Framework was developed over 5 years by a team of senior psychologists, service users, and mental health activists. The project was funded by the Division of Clinical Psychology of the British Psychological Society. The framework was created as an alternative to traditional psychiatric diagnostic models like the DSM and ICD. It aims to understand mental distress by considering the roles of power, thread, and meaning in people's lives, rather than viewing distress as symptoms of mental disorders. Main contributors. Lead authors, Dr. Lucy Johnston, consultant clinical psychologist and independent trainer, and Professor Mary Boyle, Professor Emeritus of Clinical Psychology, University of East London. Contributing authors project group, Dr. John Crombie, Dr. Jackie Dillon, Dr. David Harper, and Dr. Eleanor Longden, Professor Peter Kinderman, Professor David Pilgrim, and Professor John Redd.
Central concepts. The PDMF looks at emotional distress and troubling behaviors as meaningful responses to challenges, not as medical problems caused by the body. It sees these behaviors as ways people try to cope and survive difficult situations, focusing on the personal meaning behind them. The PTMF challenges the idea that mental health issues are caused by biological problems. Instead, it focuses on how social, cultural, and life experiences influence emotional distress. The PTMF focuses on 3 key ideas: power, how social forces affect people; threat, the dangers or challenges they face; meaning, how they make sense of their experiences. These work together to shape how people feel and respond. The PTMF highlights that people actively make sense of their experiences through personal, cultural, and shared stories. Instead of labeling people with a disorder, the PTMF sees distress as a natural and understandable reaction to difficult life situations. The PTMF identifies common ways people respond to challenges, like dealing with shame or exclusion, without using strict medical labels. It recognizes that distress is influenced by culture and history and respects the different ways people experience and express their struggles. Link between life events and mental health. Key research findings. Trauma, abuse, neglect, and social exclusions are major risk factors for mental health challenges. Example, childhood abuse has been strongly linked to conditions like depression, anxiety, and psychosis later in life. PTMF perspective. Mental health struggles are reframed as understandable responses to adversity, not as internal dysfunction or disorders. This approach highlights the role of life experience in shaping emotional distress and behaviors. Trauma-informed perspectives. Trauma-informed care aligns with PTMF by focusing on how adverse experiences affect mental health. It emphasizes understanding behaviors in their relationships and environment. Example, schools and organizations using trauma-informed models see better emotional regulation and resilience without relying on diagnosis or medication. Lived experiences as evidence. The PTMF incorporates personal narratives and testimonies, treating them as valid forms of evidence. This approach values subjective experiences such as how individuals understand and survive their circumstances. Focus on social and structural equalities. Evidence shows that factors like poverty, discrimination, and inequalities are closely tied to mental health struggles. The PTMF highlights these connections, advocating for addressing the root causes of distress. Holistic approach to distress. Research supports the PTMF's holistic model, which integrates biological, relational, social, cultural, and material factors rather than focusing narrowly on biology.
Techniques. Narrative approaches, encouraging storytelling to explore life experiences. Collaborative mapping, co-creating frameworks that outline traits and coping strategies. Meaning-making exercises, identifying patterns and personal significant in life events. Strategies. Non-pathologizing language, avoiding clinical labels and focus on human experiences, emphasizing traits, highlighting resilience and coping mechanisms. Validation of lived experiences, centering the individual's story as essential. Materials. Treat responding mapping templates, visual aids for exploring connections between traits and behaviors, guided journals or worksheets, tools for self-reflection and tracking process, psychoeducational handouts, explaining the framework's concepts in accessible language, case studies, examples illustrating the application of frameworks. Implications and fit for CYC. Shift in perspective. Move away from diagnosis models and towards understanding context. Enhance empathy. Builds stronger relational connections by focus on lived experiences. Cultural sensitivity adapts to diverse cultural understandings of traits and resilience. Empowerment focus enables youth to reclaim agents in their narratives. Prevention-oriented practice, early recognition of traits can reduce escalation to crisis. Collaborative care promotes teamwork with youth, families, and other professionals. Stronger relationships and personalized interventions lead to better engagement, creating safe spaces for exploration and healing. And that's our reference. Thank you for listening.